Hello and welcome to Ahval Podcasts, the home of objective, up-to-date and independent reporting on Turkey. Don't forget to follow our reports through social media, on ahvalnews.com or through our mobile app. Let's get started.
Ever since the lawyer visited the island of İmralı, where Öcalan, the leader of the PKK, is being held, and this visit resulted in a press conference some after in Istanbul with the support decision. And ever since May 2, where the visit took place, there has been wild speculation about what is going on, to put it simply, about the hunger strikes, whether or not it is ploy by Erdogan and his party to influence the outcome of the repeat, which is dated to June 23. Let us put the picture quite straight and lucid based on sources, and also as one of the few journalists who've been following the process of the visit and the efforts to end hunger strikes massively held still today in Turkey. What happened was that as many of you know, listeners, the hunger strikes began in mid-February, initiated by an elder member of the Kurdish political movement, and she was joined rapidly by a larger group of Kurdish inmates, and this became a political act in massive scale. As of now, there are about 5,000 political prisoners, Kurdish prisoners in jails, continuing these hunger strikes. Yet, for after some time, the concerns grew both in Turkey and internationally. This would lead to deaths of especially young people, and this would cause further grief in the never-ending struggle for freedom and identity as perceived by the Kurdish political movement and PKK, and also the representative party of pro-Kurdish party HDP in parliament. So the most worrisome segment were the mothers of those who had joined the hunger, and raised their pressure towards the end of April to the HDP leadership, as well as some international and observers putting pressure to find a way to terminate the hunger strikes. And then a group of intermediaries whose identities are being held and kept off the record got with the government, and through the Justice Ministry, they conveyed their message to President Erdogan that the only way, as it seems now, they said, is lawyers break the isolation of Abdullah Öcalan and have the lawyers meet him and listen to what he will have to say, and his message will be conveyed to the Kurdish political movement and these hunger strikers in the prisons. The response was quite harsh, and at the end, President Erdogan is reported to have given in, saying that conditionally he would allow this visit by the lawyers to the island, and just for once, as he said, reportedly, and that this visit on the island would definitely should lead to the termination of the hunger strikes. Otherwise, it was added that if the hunger strikes continued, the contacts between the lawyers and family members of Öcalan would terminate in the future. So the lawyers met Öcalan, and they were only allowed to take some notes during the meeting. Öcalan did not hand them a letter or did not write a letter in their presence. And the lawyers said that their notes were taken away by the security officers, and they returned. Some days passed, and dead silence from the lawyer's side and from the HDP side, and people were kept waiting. And it was May 6th afternoon, and so the electoral board was about to announce its ruling about the repeat elections. Almost at the same time, the lawyers held a press conference saying that we have a letter to read, we will not take questions, and they read the text and they left. So many questions remained after that. Of course, the major fundamental question was whether or not this message was about calling for an end to hunger strikes, which it quite clearly meant that the hunger strikes should end, and whether or not this would lead to this would be obeyed by the political prisoners hunger striking, and third, whether or not this was really Öcalan's letter, and fourth, what was the political play behind this step by Erdogan. So many questions remain as to this day. But one thing is clear, that the sources from within the Kurdish political movement say that, and also clearly stated by some other people like Hasip Kaplan, former HDP deputy, in his interview with Ahval yesterday, that this was not really a letter or text fully controlled by Öcalan. This text was they meant, including Hasip Kaplan, or they implied was reformulated and prepared by Turkish authorities, and some formulations were injected in it, and this was the letter presented as Öcalan's letter. Of course, in the absence of further information, there was wild speculation in Turkish media about this thing. And some even went further as far as saying that this would be the beginning of a peace process, which absolutely it wasn't, and it will not be. And whether or not this was meaning that Erdogan was trying to break or make the Kurdish voters to join in the elections for voting for its party, join the movement, join the alliance, that Republican alliance or Republic alliance that he and Bahçeli had built. So a lot of speculation, but the core of the question, I think the entire process is limited to that, whether or not the hunger strikes would end. It didn't. It seems that there's now, it drove a wedge within the Kurdish political movement. KCK, a branch of the PKK, issued a declaration saying that this is unacceptable because the conditions, demands connected with the hunger strikes were to break the isolation of Öcalan. And since that goal, that objective is not achieved, the hunger strikes will continue. By saying so, KCK also therewith objected the authority of Öcalan and opened the gates to further speculation and question marks. On the other hand, what Erdogan would have meant and would do is also remaining an open question. But there is reason to believe that Erdogan, by this step, had hoped that if the hunger strikes had ended, he would, of course, emerge as the leader of some sort of benevolence that helped end a painful process and ease the pain of the mothers, or terminated the concerns of the mothers of those hunger strikers in the prison. But it seems to have struck to or come to a dead end at the moment. And there's tension. and how long this tension will go on, what the pro-Kurdish party HDP will do, and how the nationalist parties will use this development, and where the main opposition, secular main opposition, CHP, will stand in this process is also open to a lot of questions. But one thing remains: the pain and fear and concern of the mothers, and whether or not the hunger strikes will end. Regarding the elections, it's also an open question, because many people now argue that if Erdogan wants to win, has to win the elections, again, repeat elections in Istanbul, he will have to carve a gap between the grassroots, Kurdish grassroots of the HDP party in Istanbul and the rest of the opposition alliance, opposition bloc. So that if there is some sort of alienation between the CHP and the HDP voters, his chances of winning, securing a victory will be much easier. And also another indication is that there may be some hardening measures against the pro-Kurdish party HDP, which was already shown that there were some subpoenas sent to the General Assembly of Parliament today, calling for lifting of immunities of at least 7 or 8 prominent Kurdish or pro-Kurdish HDP members, MPs. So all in all, it's a very tense situation, and the tensions are bound to continue for some time until the elections. There is more reason to be concerned about these uncertainties because it includes all sorts of probabilities, including violence and further tragedies with deaths.